Hey, this is Brandon from Artismia. Thanks for joining me. In this video, I'm going to create a starting soon bumper for my OBS software using Final Cut Pro. And by the way, this entire video is being recorded using the OBS software on a Mac. Okay, so here's what we're going to be creating using Final Cut Pro and a couple of downloaded textures. And of course, I'm going to set it up so that it can be a loop in the starting soon scene in my OBS software. So the first thing I did was create a new project and title it OBS starting soon bumper. And then I want to add a background, so I'm going to choose one from the pre-canned options found in Final Cut Pro. Since they're already in the Final Cut Pro, I just picked the one that I thought would look pretty cool for this project. So it's this here, this floating circles. I didn't like the fact that it was a canned color. It was already this color, and there are color choices that you can pick from up here in the top right corner. You could choose from different colors, but that's not as fun and it's too generic for me. So I went ahead and went to the color correction area and made some adjustments here until it went to a color that I sort of liked, that visually was appealing to me, and I made those adjustments to get something that I liked. So I switched the exposure also, bring that down a little bit, change my saturation because it is kind of hot, much more intense on the blue, and I wanted something that faded in the background a little bit like that. The next thing that I did is I went to the titles, and I'm just going to pick a generated title here, which is going to be a basic 3D, and I drag that into place down here. Reposition it to where the length of the whole entire video here, and since it's a animated intro, it's going to come in boom, just like that. I didn't like the font, so I went over here and changed the fonts for the text. And I want it to be live stream starting soon, so I'm going to add that. Then after I select that text there, live stream, I'm going to reduce the size down on that one. And then I'm going to adjust the tracking of all of this so that it is a little bit wider with a little bit more air to breathe, and reduce the line spacing, bring it up a little bit tighter, and then adjust it upward so that it's more centered. Actually, I'm going to drop it down because I do want to put my logo across the top of that up there. In addition to that, I want to switch the font, so I change up the font to something different. Since it's a 3D text, you can change the material quite easily here. I'm going to switch the material to something that looks really cool. Like gold kind of looks pretty cool. To create the neon look, I went ahead and hit a glow on there, and I changed that glow to a different color. Something pink like that maybe would be kind of nice to give it that neon feel. And then bring up that blur also and the radius down here. Okay, so I'm going to grab my Artismia logo here and I'm going to drop it into place here. All right, now you can see it's awfully large, and the location that it came in at is okay. So I'm going to reduce the scale here down to one that looks pretty good, what I like, which is around 68%, and I'm going to scale its height and reduce that down too, just to give it a little bit of squishiness to be able to make it look more visually appealing. Then I'm going to bring the position upwards so that it sits on top, just like that, by adjusting the position on the right hand side, the Y axis, bringing it upward. And I'm going to lock that into place by hitting a keyframe and lock the scale into place with a keyframe. Now keep in mind I have this adjusted on the playhead. I adjust the playhead so that it lines up with the 3D text and the motion of the 3D text, and add those keyframes. Once the keyframes are added, then I go backwards to line up a new keyframe that works visually with what the motion of the 3D text is. I'm going to add another keyframe for the scale and another keyframe for the position and reduce the size. Yeah. And I'm going to bring it downward just a little bit so that it has this backwards motion, that it will reduce its size and go backwards a little bit with the motion of the 3D text. So to test that here, I'm going to go ahead and just click here and we'll see what it does. See how it kind of lines up? It looks okay. I'm going to then change the position of it so that the 3D text is above the logo, so that the 3D text comes in front of it visually, so that it does not look, so that the Artismia doesn't look like it's over top of the live streaming. Next, I'm going to add then these other effects to it. On the Artismia logo, I'm going to do a colorize application to that, and that's not too bad. I can live with that. Then I'm going to go to lights and add flashing, which is going to give me that little bit of pulsing. And since it's so quick and all over the place with that flashing, I would like to reduce that intensity. So I'm going to go over here to the right and change the intensity down to somewhere around 9, I guess. That's pretty good. And then visually check it out. That looks all right. And then I'm going to add a spotlight to it too, just to give it a little bit more of that centralized lighting right in the front of it there, which the flashing will be intensified by that spotlight, giving that kind of cool look. Next thing I'm going to do to that same logo there is I want to add some movement to it. I want to give it something visually cool. So I went ahead and go and do a distortion on it and chose underwater. And then I want to reduce the amount of that underwater effect. So I'm going to leave it at 2 for now. Change the refraction down so that it's just the tiniest little bit of movement, and then reduce the speed. And then watch it until I find something that looks kind of cool. And that's kind of nice. That's a little bit of subtle movement. I like that. The next thing that I added to this was, you can see here, a real smoke texture. So what I have are some textures that are filmed basically on just a black background. In this case, this was just a smoke texture downloaded from the internet from Video Copilot. So Video Copilot has some really great textures that you can download and use for your projects, which is pretty great. Then you want to import them into your event. So in this case, I have real smoke imported here, and I'm going to just drop it down on, place it where I want. Since this has a black background and I just want the white that's on there, I'm going to change its blend mode to screen, which would then apply it. You can see it in the background there, which is it's kind of cool. I want to over top of everything, and I want to increase the size of it. So I'm going to change the scale, and I'm going to change its position over to the left. Now I'm going to do one cool thing here. I'm going to duplicate it. All right, take one of these and reverse the clip so that it's going the opposite direction, and then switch it to the other side and adjust it also so that it's sort of sitting in a different location. I'm going to go back to the previous one and adjust it to the left a little bit more. And now, as you see, as I play it here, it has that smoke feel. That's a little bit fast for me, so I'm going to do a Command R, or Propeller R, okay? Which is going to allow me to then change the speed of the video. And I think the smoke's moving a little bit too fast, so I'm going to reduce the speed by stretching it out to about 75%. Cut it off. And do the same with this one. Change that to about 75% also, because I want the speed of the smoke to kind of be a little slower. So it's a little bit more, yeah, I like that. I like that slower look to it, okay? Visually, it's a little bit more appealing to me to have it be slower like that. Okay, so the additional thing that I had here was a photograph of myself that I then used in Photoshop to trim and cut the background away. So now I have this image on there, and I want to bring that image in from the left-hand side. So to do that, I'm going to create a keyframe again on this by moving the playhead to a location that I think looks all right. And I'm going to go to Position and set a keyframe on position, making certain that I have that particular image selected because I want the position to be there. And then I'm going to set another keyframe at the start of the video and adjust the position to the left so that I zoom in from the left using the keyframes like so. Now at the end of this, I'd like to have the same kind of motion or movements occurring. Or if you're just having a loop for your OBS, whatever it is, or for your scene that you're trying to create, or your bumper that you want to make, if you're not going to have a loop, you don't necessarily have to have any of these extra motions or movements as things exit. But if you're going to, you simply just create an additional keyframe over here by clicking on the media that you want, set your keyframe, go to the end of the clip or to the location where you want that to end, set your keyframe there by just dragging or changing that position. So then when you go to push play, you can see the motion and movement that's occurring, and maybe we'll just change this up a little bit. So instead of it actually, the live stream will go backwards, we'll make the Artismia logo come forward. So I'm going to make sure I select that media. I'm going to go to my transform area again. I'm going to set a position and a scale keyframe where the playhead's at. I'm going to go to the end here and then change my scale to larger so that it comes forward. It visually looks like it's coming towards us, and we'll change the position to above just a little bit like so, so that when the keyframes play, you have the motion, and then if it loops like we're going to have it do in OBS, I'm going to set it to loop. I can then automatically play it again and again until obviously the stream starts. And I kind of like this one a little bit better than the previous one that I made. Yeah. Check that out. Yeah, and then the new one we just made together here. Yep, I definitely like the new one. And we want to add some kind of audio to this, and what I chose to do was to take one of the songs that I created using Logic Pro from previous videos and just use a portion of it here. And I've selected a small section of that. And in this case, I'm not going to use the entire part of it. I just want to use that intro static that I have that I created for that song. And I'm going to pop that into place here and give it a listen here. You can see now what I'm going to do is also adjust that audio and then bring the volume down just as it tapers at the end, so that when it does loop in the OBS software, it'll kind of taper in the end and fade out in the end and then fade into the front, so that it's not too much of an annoyance if it's sitting there for a longer period of time while people are waiting for the stream to start. So I forgot that part. So then we're going to export that with the audio as an MP4, and then let me switch it over here and we'll show you how we can add that to our OBS software. Okay, so to import that media into your OBS software, you're going to want to go down to the bottom left-hand corner and hit the plus button to create a new scene. And then move to the right under Sources and hit the plus button again to select a new media source. So you'll want to choose Media Source. We're going to create a new one. We're going to call this one Starting Soon Bumper number 2. I'm going to say OK. And then I'm going to browse to the file that I just created, which was my streaming sources, and it was with audio number 2. So I'm going to select Open. I want to make this a loop, and I want to make sure that the close file when it's inactive, so that it's not using up resources and memory. So make sure it's on a loop and close file when it's not being used. And this is the final result. This is what the end result will look like for the second one that I made. Two different versions with very similar results, but I still think I like the second one I made better. Well, that's going to be all for this one. Thanks for watching. I really appreciate it. I hope this tutorial was beneficial to you in some way. Make sure you hit that like button, leave me a comment or a question if you have anything, and hit that subscribe. This is Brandon from Artismia, and we'll catch you next time.